Imagine walking into your office tomorrow, looking around at your team, and realizing that a single piece of software running on a stack of Mac Minis in the corner could replace the output of 20 of them. Not in 10 years. No.
It sounds like the opening to a dystopian novel, doesn't it? But we aren't talking about science fiction. We're talking about a project called OpenClaw Ultron. The premise is terrifyingly simple. Build one replicant, an agent that possesses 100 to 200 specific skills to handle the workload of a venture firm and a media production company combined.
That's a massive claim. Usually, when we hear about AI automation, it's vague. It's AI will help you write emails. But this is specific. They are talking about replacing the chores of 20 people. But let's be honest. When you remove the chores, do you still need the people?
Ugh, that is the multi-million-dollar question. The argument being made here is that the goal isn't necessarily to fire everyone, but to strip away the drudgery. If you have a producer or an investor spending 60% of their time on scheduling, looking up data, or checking if emails were sent, that's waste. If the AI, this Ultron, takes that over, the human theoretically levels up to do high-value work, relationship building, creative strategy, the things a machine can't touch.
Theoretically. But let's dig into the how, because this isn't just ChatGPT running in a browser window. They are building a bespoke architecture.
Exactly. And this is where it gets fascinating for anyone interested in the nuts and bolts of how businesses will run in the future. They've moved beyond just chatting with a bot. They are building an instance of OpenClaw that has persistent memory, specific skills, and something called cron jobs.
Cron jobs. That's a developer term. It usually means a script that runs automatically at a specific time. How does that apply to a knowledge worker?
Think of it as a digital heartbeat. In this system, they have set up automated routines that run without anyone asking. For example, they implemented an attendance bot. In their company, everyone posts their start-of-day goals in Slack. Previously, a human manager had to scroll through, check who posted, and nag the people who didn't. Now, a cron job runs at noon, scans the channel, identifies who is missing, and publicly tags them to ask for their update.
Wow. That feels incredibly intrusive. It's like having a digital middle manager breathing down your neck, but it never sleeps, and it never forgets.
It is efficient, though, and it removes the emotional friction of a human having to play bad cop. But it goes deeper than just nagging. They have agents running self-optimization loops. Imagine this. At 3 a.m., while the entire company is asleep, the AI wakes up. It scans its own code, its own error logs from the previous day, and identifies bugs.
Wait, it fixes itself?
It proposes fixes. In the example discussed, the AI realized there was a time zone error between Central Standard Time and Daylight Time in a calendar invite. It flagged the bug, identified the code that caused it, and told the human operator, "Here is a medium-effort fix for the scheduling issue. By 8 a.m., the human just approves it." The software is effectively gardening itself overnight.
That is a fundamental shift. Usually, software degrades. Over time, we call it bit rot. This is software that potentially gets better the longer you leave it alone. But where does all this data live? If I'm feeding this thing my emails, my calendar, my Slack messages, am I just handing the keys to my kingdom over to OpenAI or Google?
You hit on the exact friction point that is driving a massive new trend: local AI. There is a growing movement, spearheaded by companies like Exo, that argues you shouldn't be renting your brain. If you put all your firm's secrets, your proprietary data, and your memory into a closed model like ChatGPT, you are building value for them, not you. Plus, they can change the model on a whim.
Right. We've all seen that. You have a prompt that works perfectly. They update the model and suddenly your workflow breaks. So the alternative is running it yourself?
Yes, sovereignty. The idea is to treat AI not as a tool you rent, but as an exocortex, an extension of your own brain that you own. To do that, you need to run the models locally on your own hardware. And this is where the hardware landscape is shifting dramatically. You don't necessarily need a $1 million data center anymore.
But surely, to run a model that can replace 20 employees, you need massive compute power. You can't do that on a laptop.
You can't do it on a laptop, but you can do it on consumer-grade hardware that is surprisingly accessible. They are daisy-chaining Mac Studios. Using Thunderbolt 5 cables, they connect multiple Macs together to create a cluster. Because of the unified memory architecture in Apple Silicon, you can pool the memory.
So, instead of buying a $50,000 NVIDIA chip that you can't even find in stock, you just buy 2 or 3 Mac Studios and plug them into each other?
Precisely. For about $20,000 to $25,000, you can build a cluster with enough memory to run frontier-class models locally. We aren't talking about dumbed-down models anymore. Open-source models, like the ones coming out of China, Kimi K 2.5 for instance, or Llama, are closing the gap with GPT-4. If you run that locally, you have zero privacy risk, zero latency from the cloud, and total control.
That changes the economics completely. If a venture firm can spend $25,000, which is a fraction of one junior employee's salary, and get a machine that works 24/7, never takes a vacation, and remembers every Slack message ever sent, the leverage is insane.
It's 10x leverage. And it brings us back to the skills concept. In this OpenClaw system, they are building skills one by one. A skill might be research a guest. A human might do that differently every time. Maybe they forget to check the guest's LinkedIn one day, or they miss a recent controversy. The AI executes the guest research skill exactly the same way, every single morning at 7 a.m.
Consistency over brilliance.
Exactly. A junior executive is variable. They get tired, they get distracted. The AI is relentless. They mentioned a sales scanning skill. The bot goes to YouTube, scans the top 20 competitor podcasts, pulls the transcripts, identifies the sponsors, checks the internal CRM to see if those sponsors are already clients, and if not, alerts the sales team. It does this every day.
That's grunt work that humans hate.
And humans are bad at it because it's boring. The AI loves it. And here is the kicker, the interface. They didn't even code the dashboard for this system manually. They used vibe coding.
Vibe coding? That sounds like a Gen Z buzzword.
It is, but it's real. The builder, Oliver, literally took a video screen capture of a dashboard he liked from a YouTube video, fed that video into the AI, and said, "Build me this." The AI wrote the code to replicate the interface. He didn't spend weeks designing a UI. He just vibed it into existence.
That is actually mind-blowing. So, we have AI writing the code for its own interface, AI fixing its own bugs at night, and AI doing the boring sales research. It feels like we are approaching a threshold where the human's role shifts from worker to architect.
Or shepherd. You are herding these agents. But there is a darker side we need to touch on. The skills are getting better, but they aren't perfect. They mentioned a scoring system for guests trying to teach the AI to judge if a guest is good or viral. That is subjective. Can an AI understand charisma? Can it understand timing?
That's the last bastion, isn't it? Taste.
For now. But if you feed it enough data, Twitter follower counts, previous video views, sentiment analysis of comments, it can probably make a statistically significant guess that rivals a human's gut instinct. And if it can do that, the definition of intuition starts to crumble.
It makes you wonder about the entry-level job. If I'm a 2-2-year, old fresh out of college, my way of learning the industry was doing that grunt work. I learned who the sponsors were by listing them. I learned what a good guest looked like by researching bad ones. If the AI does all that, how does the next generation learn?
That is the crisis of the missing middle. We are removing the training ground. But the counter-argument is that those young employees will now start their careers with a staff of 20 AI agents. They won't be assistants. They will be managers from day one. They will be managing a cluster of Mac Studios running an exocortex.
So the barrier to entry becomes capital can you afford the $20,000 cluster and adaptability.
And curiosity. The people who are winning right now, like the team building this Ultron project, are the ones willing to tinker. They are connecting Notion to Slack, Slack to the AI to the calendar. They are building a nervous system for their company. The companies that don't do this, they're going to be paying humans to do things that competitors are doing for free with electricity.
It's a stark choice, adapt or become obsolete. But I want to circle back to the hardware for a second. You mentioned this RDMA technology over Thunderbolt. Why is that such a big deal? It sounds like technical jargon.
It stands for Remote Direct Memory Access. In simple terms, it allows one computer to access the memory of another computer without going through the CPU, which is the bottleneck. It's usually reserved for supercomputers in massive data centers. Apple sneaking this into consumer hardware means you can treat two computers as one giant brain. It's what makes this local cluster idea viable. It's democratization of supercomputing.
So we have the democratization of supercomputing meeting the democratization of intelligence.
And the result is that a small firm can punch way above its weight. They can have a sales department that is just a script running on a Mac Mini. They can have a HR department that is a cron job checking attendance.
It's exciting, but it also feels like we are tightening the screws on human inefficiency. There is no place to hide in that company. If you don't post your update, the bot tags you. If you aren't closing deals, the bot knows the leads were there.
Transparency is a double-edged sword. But look at the upside. They mentioned a pitch competition winner, Next Visit AI. They are using this same technology to automate medical charting for psychiatrists. Doctors are burnt out because they spend 3 hours a day typing notes. This AI listens, charts, and does the billing.
Right. Saving the doctor from being a data entry clerk so they can actually treat patients.
Exactly. That is the Ultron promise. We hand over the robotic parts of our jobs to the robots. The danger is just ensuring that we actually have something human left to do once the robots are finished.
And that we own the robots. I think that's the takeaway here. If you are going to build this massive second brain, you better make sure it's running on your hardware, in your office, and not in a cloud server that can be turned off.
Sovereignty is the ultimate luxury asset of the AI age.
A fascinating look at the near future, or rather, the present. We're going to be watching this OpenClaw project closely. It seems like the blueprint for the next decade of business.
Absolutely. The age of the exocortex is here. You just have to decide if you're going to build one or work for someone who did.
On that cheerful note, we'll wrap it up. Time to go check if my cron jobs are running.
Don't let them catch you sleeping.